Good evening. Today is the 19th day of September, and I'm delighted that you're with us this evening. As you can see, we're not in our studio tonight, but rather we are at the Teamsters Union Hall with the South Oklahoma City Democrat Women's Club, and they're playing bingo, and it looks like everybody's having a great time. The beautiful thing is, every time they do this money goes to support candidates, and we'll talk more about that this evening. But I'm thrilled to welcome to our show tonight someone who I really admire, and I know that you're going to want to stick around and listen to, because she's a terrific candidate and will make a great congressperson. So we have all that and more on tonight's The Hamilton Report. Well, it has been an exciting couple of weeks to be a Democrat in Oklahoma. What we are seeing is the results of your labor and mine and every other Democrat who is out there supporting candidates, because that's how we are making a difference, Oklahoma, and it feels so good. The optimism, the hope that I'm hearing from folks all over the state is something that, frankly, we could not have had even a couple of years ago. But with our candidates this year, especially doing such a great job with, frankly, very little money compared to the other side of the aisle. But that's okay. They're knocking doors. They're talking to people. They're letting they're letting their constituents know what they believe, and they're also listening to the needs of people in their communities. And all of this makes a difference, because every day Democrats are showing not just the reasons to vote for them, but the reasons not to vote for a Republican. We are in the situation that we are in, with a government steeped in cronyism, scandal, crookedness, and corruption. And the people of Oklahoma are waking up, and they're saying no more. We have people running for office who want to decimate public education, although it says in our Constitution that we must have free public education for everyone in our state. And that goes back to before statehood when that was written. So there's so much at stake, and we've talked about that a lot over the last few weeks, and we'll continue to, because we are now 50 days away from the midterm election. And I remember when it was 100 and 200 and 365, but now we're down to 50 days. So everything that we do matters. And speaking of doing, our guest this evening is someone who has really been doing a great job promoting her message, because she has shaped messages because she's listening to people, listening to their needs, their desires, things that they're afraid of for themselves and their families. So with that, it's my privilege to welcome to the Hamilton Report candidate for Congressional District 2, Naomi Andrews. Good evening, Naomi. How are you?
Hi, Scott. I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Angela, somehow we have Naomi Andrews' name spelled with 2 A's, and I'm going to ask you if you could take care of that for us while we're talking. It's okay. It's okay. You're a very creative person, but maybe just not a great typist. That's okay.
Right? And a lot on my mind. That's how you know that I'm
Naomi,
not thinking about me.
Let's start. Let's start at the beginning. I want to know what it was that made a working mom just stand still and say, you know what? Oklahoma deserves better than what we've got. What was it that was a turning point for you that made you to decide this is the year I'm going to run for Congress?
To be honest, it was just opportunity. When you look at statistically how likely somebody is to win when there's an incumbent in office, it's really hard to go against that type of money, that type of clout, that type of um, just connections that people have. And I knew that if there was ever a year for us to be able to make a change, it was going to be this year. And so I waited. I tried to help recruit for the seat. And, at the last minute, it was literally the last hour. There were 14 Republicans in the race. And I said, if we don't have somebody else for people to vote for, then we aren't going to have as many voters turn out. So I said, I'm going to do it. A little bit of arm twisting with Alicia, not going to lie, because there are a lot of things to consider, especially as a mom. You don't want to put your kids in danger, especially when we see how violently people are trying to settle their differences these days. But ultimately, I just couldn't see this seat be won in a primary or in a runoff. I knew that I had to give the people of CD2 someone else that they could vote for in good conscience.
I'm glad that you brought up the point of violence, because the New York Times did a series of articles this weekend, and I've only gotten about 2/3 of the way through those. A fascinating look at how truly by a thread our democracy is hanging on, and the willingness for MAGA Republicans to literally take up arms against our government, against our leaders. And it's something that did not end on January 6th, because as we've seen from the failed former president's most recent rallies, he's still throwing red meat to the wolves. And how has it been for you campaigning in an area where there frankly are a lot of Republican voters?
Yeah. Well, first, let me just say that I think the majority of Oklahomans are more alike than we are different. I think that the problems that we are facing as a state are bigger than any differences that we have. And like a lot of people who are Republican, I grew up around guns. I've never been afraid of them. As a kid, like I knew how to respect them. Like I've grown up in the same way that a lot of people who are Republicans have, right? The difference is now we have people pushing polarization because of the 24-hour news cycle, especially. We see a lot of people being driven to one extreme or the other. They want us to be divided because that's what gets ratings. And so it was a little bit scary. But everybody that I've met, even if they've been a Republican, has been nice. The only time that I've really had a problem has been when somebody has thought they could send me a message or when somebody could mail me. I've received mail at my house that had a sticker on it with a shooting target and bullet holes in it. And that was at my home where my kids are. And that gave me pause. I tried to say, this doesn't mean anything. People are just trying to scare you. But the thing is that I'm not easily scared, right? Like I do what I need to do to protect my kids. I'm a mama bear. But I'm not going to be scared away from this. And if anything, when somebody tries to intimidate me and tries to threaten me, I just say, bring it on, because my integrity is not for sale and my integrity will not be compromised through fear. I'm going to continue to say what I say, and the more that people push me, the louder I'm going to get.
Well, and I think that that's wise, because it's about being loud enough for people to hear you. And I'm grateful that you are not being intimidated, and I can only imagine that fear. But that's why terrorism is called terrorism. It's the intent of striking terror at us. And you said, you know what? I'm not giving into that. So I applaud you for that. That's a big step. Now, what are some of the issues that are most concerning to people in Congressional District 2? What are you hearing from folks?
The number one thing that I hear about is water, and the lack of it, and what our future is going to look like. My hometown of Beggs, I grew up in Okmulgee County in Beggs, Oklahoma. Very regularly, their water gets turned off. And it's because their infrastructure is outdated. Thank goodness we had the infrastructure bill passed so that we can get some money, some funds out there. But the problem is that a lot of these small rural communities, even if they have the money, they don't necessarily have the manpower or the administrative power to implement some of this stuff. And so, I mean, it's not just that. There are other places like Tar Creek up in Miami or Ottawa County area. It's a Superfund site, and the water there has been poisoned by lead and other heavy metals for longer than I've been alive. And it's one of the biggest tragedies that we don't talk about. A school up there that I used to go to in high school for speech and debate tournaments, I knew people who went to school there and at Pitcher, and the school is gone, obviously, because the whole town is a ghost town. So I think there's like this idea of our water table being polluted or aquifers being polluted, and not just from these mining companies that come in, but also from like agribusinesses that are polluting the watershed. And then you have things just like small communities that the infrastructure isn't working. And one of my friends, Kara, said to me when I told her I was running, she was like, "Would you please talk about our water situation?" She was like, "I never in my life thought that water would become political. And yet somehow wanting clean water is a political statement. And I believe that it should be."
You mentioned the president. Yeah, you mentioned President Biden's infrastructure bill, and that will deal with things like clean drinking water in Oklahoma, broadband in Oklahoma. I mean, if you live in a major city here in Oklahoma, you're in pretty good shape as far as being able to get broadband if you can afford it. But there are communities where it's simply not available. These are the things that the people who have been serving Oklahoma will not discuss. They won't talk about it. You just shared with our viewers tonight something that I was unaware of, that there are communities who have had unsafe drinking water for truly a generation.
Yeah, longer even. I mean, 2 now. And it's not just in that one community. That creek goes into Grand Lake, which is a water reservoir of drinking water for people. And
Sure.
in fact, the EPA didn't step in until I guess it was a third of the Quapaw tribe's children had lead poisoning. And that's the other thing, is that this land was essentially taken from the Quapaws. They were forced by the government to lease it to this mining company back in like 1890, and they've never seen the benefits from that. And that's the other thing, is that my district,
And sadly, they're still paying the price for it.
exactly, and my district is almost entirely tribal land. So we have the Creek Nation, which is where I grew up. We have Cherokee Nation. Then we have the Quapaw. We have the Eastern Shawnee, Seneca, Cayuga. There's like 15 different tribes. So I will be going up there in October. And then I'm also going to be attending the Tar Creek Water Conference, because it's an issue that I've cared about since before I was running. So, and something that we can fix.
And that's what it takes to be a leader. Is looking around at your neighbors and saying, okay, how can I help improve your life, as opposed to how can I line my pockets further, or how can I totally disregard the needs of those around me, the people who elected me. And so I appreciate, on a very personal level, the way that you're talking to and about the citizens of CD2, because they need someone who finally will take their concerns seriously.
Yeah.
One of the, and this is a straw man issue, frankly, but there's a lot of talk in CD2 about immigration and the border crisis, and part of that's being fueled by James Langford because he, everything in his mind that a Democrat touches is a crisis, and he has spent more time flying over Oklahoma to get to the border than he has spent in Oklahoma doing town hall meetings with his constituents, and always making a big thing. The bottom line is President Biden has said, look, we can do this. We can create ways to ensure that people who are seeking asylum can do so in a lawful way. But Republicans, you have to work with them. And of course, Oklahoma's congressional delegation has refused to do that. But last week, I sat in horror as I was listening to the radio talking about the way I'm not even going to name them, but two Southern governors loaded up planes and flew migrants by lying to them, straight up lies, flew them to Martha's Vineyard. And they thought this was going to be a great photo op, that the people of Martha's Vineyard, I guess they thought that they were so afraid of brown people that they would run in different directions. When in fact, what happened, those good folks came together, provided meals, a place for folks to stay. They gave them clothes to wear, and they worked with the governor of Massachusetts to get these folks to a safe place. But I'm not going to talk anymore about that. First, I want us to take a look at a video from Trey Crowder. And he's the liberal redneck. He will be at our Mike Sidearm Memorial Barbecue on October 1st, live and in person. But what he says in this video, I think, speaks for a lot of folks. Let's take a look at it now.
Well, it seems Republican governors have taken to shipping illegal immigrants to liberal land. Ron DeSantis chartered a flight full of immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. I bet he misunderstood that plan at least a little bit when his staff first brought it up. He was sitting in there like, oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, we'll fly in real low, push them out, hashtag drone the libs, right? That's awesome. No, sir. No, we thought we'd just land and leave them there, like a PR stunt. Oh, well, that's okay too, I guess. Hey, can we at least include a card that says, Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, got you some Mexicans? Listen, I know that most of these people are from Venezuela, but you got to understand, in the eyes of the other side, any type of brown immigrant is some form of Mexican, okay? That's just how their brains work. They're ignorant. Also, I bet Matt Gaetz busted in at one point like, hey, what's up? I heard you're human trafficking. Can I get in on that? What's going on? These people are monstrous, man. These are families, desperate ones, women and little children, treated as political pawns with no regard for their humanity. That's right. The what would Jesus do, won't someone think of the children crowd strikes again, y'all. Well, we all remember that famous Bible verse. And lo, the beggar did come before the Son of God in his most desperate state. And Jesus spake unto him, ugh, gross. Throw him at the neighbors. These people are ridiculous, man. It's never been more clear that they are all in on cruelty as a platform. But I think people are starting to notice on both sides. I saw a clip a couple weeks ago, this little Texas mamaw who said she was a lifelong Republican, but would be voting for Beto because, I quote, they've just gotten so mean. Yes, it was both precious and prescient, in my opinion, because it seems the Republicans have decided that because alleviating any of the actual suffering of their base is clearly out of the question, inflicting suffering upon others must be the next best thing. But I don't know if continuing to dehumanize, provoke, and persecute every other minority demographic in an increasingly diverse country in the name of pandering to the most unhinged and unstable subsection of the already slim majority makes for the wisest long-term strategy. But what do I know? I didn't go to political college. What I do know is when those people got off that plane, those godless coastal elite liberals fed them, clothed them, treated them with dignity and respect, which I feel like kind of sums up the difference pretty concisely. Also, I bet there was at least a handful of native Floridians this morning like, God damn, will you pay to fly me somewhere people know how to treat each other? Shit. Love y'all. What's up, YouTubers? Dude?
So he said a mouthful there, and in his own inimitable way. But what he said, I think, is something for us to take heart. And you actually, without any prompting from me, you brought this up a few moments ago when you were talking about water. Curing societal ills, making life better for folks, that's what Democrats believe. That's what you believe. That's what you're speaking about every time you're on the campaign trail. And I believe your message is resonating, Naomi.
Thank you. Yeah, no, definitely. And when he said, it wasn't very Christ-like, that's one of the things that I see a lot of people trying to use their personal faith to campaign on. But my personal favorite scripture was always, "Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, ye have done it unto me." And that's what I always think of in the way that I try to teach my children to treat other people, is that everybody has a story. Everybody's going through something, and people should not be used as pawns. And we need to treat other people the way that we want ourselves to be treated, the way that we would want our family to be treated, our mama. Like, we need to treat other people with kindness. And what I hear from constituents on the ground, even if we disagree on the immigration issue or how to solve it, really what I'm hearing from them is fear. And that's the thing, is that the Republican Party pushes a lot of fear onto people. They want us to think that there's somebody coming to take our job or coming to upset our families, when really that is just a mask to hide the fact that the people at the top are already taking our jobs. They're already hurting our families. And if they can get us to point the finger at a family who is down on their luck and trying to escape, whatever they're trying to escape, whatever's bringing them here, or however they're trying to improve their lives, if they can get us to focus on them, if they can scapegoat immigrants, then they get to stay in power longer. And I mean, even if I am elected, there's a good chance that maybe I wouldn't get reelected, because that's not the type of thing that I do. I don't try to manipulate people's opinions by hurting someone else. I believe in being honest in my dealings with my fellow man, and in letting people know that I'm going to be there for you. And even if we disagree on something, that doesn't mean that we can't find a path forward. We don't have to agree on the cause in order to start working on a solution. And when we listen to what's really underneath someone's answer, when someone is being hopeful, if we listen to what's underneath that, most of the time they're very worried about something else, and this is just the way that they feel comfortable expressing that. So I would try to get to the bottom of that. Like, what is your real concern? And of course people may not own up to it, but I try to listen for those clues. It's like when your teenager maybe is upset and they're like, "No, I'm fine," and you start to think, okay, have they eaten? Were they, how much sleep are they getting? You try to see what the real cause is. And that's what I think we have to do, is we can't just listen to the words that people are saying, but we have to recognize that even Republicans are struggling right now. And that's because of bad policies that have been pushed by the people who are in office. And they're trying to push more, like getting rid of the rural schools in CD2. So that's what I'm listening for.
As you were speaking, Naomi, something that really struck me is the way you use the word "we." You're not trying to be a one-person show. You're talking about we in the collective sense, not just your colleagues who are candidates around the state of Oklahoma. But you're talking about the people. You're talking about the people in Congress, but most especially the people who live and work and are just trying to get by and make life a little bit better for themselves in eastern Oklahoma. And to me, that says so much about your character. But I'm going to interject something here. Part of we, that means our viewers tonight. It means everyone that we can possibly round up. You did not jump into this race with a couple $1 million in the bank. And so fundraising is a challenge. So I want to encourage our viewers, and you need not live in CD2 because believe me, an Oklahoma Democrat in Congress will raise the tide for everyone in Oklahoma. So I have been supporting, and will support Naomi Andrews. And I encourage you to do the same thing. And I know we've asked for so much money, but I will tell you, our county parties are raising money for candidates, federations are raising money for candidates, and collectively we are making a difference. So even if it's a small amount between now and November, anything that you can contribute will help Naomi pay for walk cards and mail pieces and literature that she can leave at the door, because all that costs money. And I know that she could also use volunteers because CD2 is a pretty large swath of Oklahoma. So go to her website, naomiforok.com, and see in more detail what Naomi has to say. And there you can find out how to support her with your time and with your energy. Naomi, before we leave tonight, I just want to tell you personally how proud I am of you, because this was a big step. It's a challenge for you, for your children, for your friends, for your social circle, because this has become your life right now. And so do know that you have our respect and our commitment to just keep pushing you all the way through November 8th.
Thank you. That means so much to me, Scott. I know that I have your guys' support. And I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't also shout out, like you said, some of the other candidates. Some of us are in yachts and some of us are in canoes and some of us are drowning. So every dollar really helps the smaller campaigns. It helps us get to events to see you guys. It helps us with the stuff, but definitely help boost us all. Myself, Melinda, Warigia, Adam, Josh. There are so many good people fighting for Oklahoma right now. And it really is a battle, especially when you got $3.4 million from Pennsylvania being poured into CD2. We know that we're not probably going to get that unless you know a billionaire, Scott. Do you know a billionaire you're not telling me about? Okay, well.
I wish I did, but you know what? We are running to win this thing. It's not just a placeholder for you.
They won't
I believe in you. No, absolutely. Naomi, it's been a pleasure visiting with you tonight. I look forward to seeing you again in person. It's been so much fun running into you all over the state lately, and I'm sure our paths will cross again very soon. So thanks for being with us tonight on the Hamilton Report.
Thank you so much for having me, and you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And tell the Women's Federation I said hello.
I sure will. Thank you. Well, friends, that was Naomi Andrews, candidate for U.S. Congress and CD2. I continue to be thrilled with our candidates, the way that they are so excited as they're knocking doors and making phone calls. And I keep saying this, and I believe you're finally hearing me. Not you necessarily, but you Democrats in Oklahoma. And that is, we have hope. We have real hope for positive change. And in order to make that happen, all we've got to do is make sure we vote and make sure everybody we know knows not just to vote, but who to vote for. Share with them why you are supporting Democrats. Well, friends, our time is up for tonight. I want to thank you again for being with us. I always say this, and I truly mean it. I don't take for granted the time that we spend together on Monday evenings, or the time that people spend watching this broadcast after the fact on YouTube or on Facebook. It means a lot. And we will continue to be here as long as you will keep inviting us into your living rooms or your places of business. Until next week, please take great care of yourself, help a candidate, and get your plan ready to vote. From all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you for joining us. Good night.